Alright guys, this is our last section of the chapter. We are going to graph tangent. So as you can see, this graph is a little bit different than our sine and cosine. One of the things I want to point out to you is that when we talk about our periods of tangent, our periods will go from an asymptote to an asymptote, okay? So this is very important when we graph, and these must be labeled. So some of the things to point out is your asymptote will come from your period, okay? It is pi over b, so this helps you with your asymptote. And then instead of a midline, because remember a midline is a vertical shift, our vertical shift will be our y-intercept. Okay. And then if you see here, A is our altitude. Remember that was our amplitude, I should say, not altitude, amplitude. But in this case, the amplitude is not going to affect our graph the way it looks. Because that would be like multiplying whether we're stretching or shrinking. We still have the same shape, okay? And I will talk about negative and positive really quickly. So when we have a positive tangent function, we are going to start from below and go up. And our negative will start top and go down. Okay, and we have examples of both down below. Now, when we do our period, it is pi over the absolute value of b. This is very important because it's a little bit different than sine. So we need to make sure that you realize the difference. Okay, it's not 2 pi over b, it's just pi over b. To find the asymptotes, what we then do is take our period and we'll cut it in half. Or if you want, you can just memorize this function or this equation and do it that way also. Okay, so let's look at this. So we have tangent 1/2 x. So first thing I want to point out is that our tangent is positive. So we're going down to up. Okay, our shape. Our period, remember, is pi over absolute value of b. Our absolute value of b in this case is 1/2. So dividing by a fraction is multiplying by the reciprocal, so we end up with 2 pi. I'm going through that quickly because you have this practice in 7.1 and 7.2. So if you don't know what I just did, stop the video, call me over. Vertical asymptotes, I'll just actually do the equation plus or minus pi all over 2 times 1/2. So in that case, it's plus or minus pi. And the vertical shift, there's nothing on the vertical shift here, which means that the y-intercept is 0, 0. Make sure you put down your y-intercept as a coordinate pair because it is a point. So I am going to write down my x and y axis in black. Okay. I am going to write down my asymptotes in this orange color. So again, you can label it however you want. I'm going to go out 3. You can go out 2 if you want, guys. As long as you're labeling and that it's even. Now, just like on sine and cosine, we are only going to graph one period. So we're going from negative pi to pi, which makes sense because totally that is our 2 pi. Now, I will start with my y-intercept, which is at 0, 0. And remember that this is a positive tangent, so we start low and go high. So on the left, start low and go high. And we are done. Let's try it on the next one. The next one we have a negative tangent pi x plus 2. So again, I'm pointing out that this is a negative. So we're actually going to go up to down. Okay. Our period is pi over absolute value of b. Our b in this case is pi. That's the number in front of x, right? So that makes our period 1. Vertical asymptote is sorry guys, I just confused myself. Positive and negative, pi over 2 times b, which reduces, the pi's cancel, right, to positive and negative 1/2. And the y-intercept is what's at the end, so it's going to be 0, 2. I'm going to draw my x and y axis in black. So this time I'm going to make my x or my asymptotes a little bit shaped differently, for the fact that I want you to see that it is correct, even though some people put their asymptotes closer. So I'm going to only go by 2 this time. This one is negative 1/2, and this one's 1/2, which makes sense, guys, right? Because the period is 1, and 1/2 and 1/2 is 1. You must label your asymptotes. You will not get credit if they are not labeled, okay? I'm going to start with my y-intercept, which is at 0, 2. And then I have to remember, since this is negative, I'm going to start up and go down. So I start up. Make sure you cross that y-intercept. Go down. And we're done. So see, if you go by 3s, go by 2s, correct. That's going to be up to you. Just make sure you label your graph. And we are done with this unit. So make sure you are ready for next class with our review and our test.